Hey everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. Today we'll be exploring how the innovations of the past are like almost a mirror for today's tech revolution.
Yeah,
So we'll be taking a deep dive into a fascinating article called Echoes of Innovation.
love that title.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Such a cool title.
Yeah.
And by the end of this deep dive, you'll be able to see how these historical patterns of adopting new tech repeat themselves. So whether it's like the steam engine, the internet, or even AI, we're going to see how society kind of grapples with and then eventually embraces these big changes.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get started with something that's been on everyone's mind lately.
Hmm.
AI taking over jobs. I mean, it's like the headline of every tech article out there these days.
It is.
But here's the thing. Our article points out that people felt the exact same way about factories during the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
Like, it was this huge shift, right? People were scared. They thought machines were going to, steal all their jobs.
It's true. And back then, it wasn't just about machines replacing manual labor. It was like the whole structure of society was shifting. People were moving from farms to cities, new industries popped up, and the skills people needed to thrive, they totally changed.
So are you saying, are we going to see the same kind of, societal shift with AI? What sort of new jobs, even emerged after the Industrial Revolution?
Well, think about it. Factories, they needed people who could design them, people to fix them, people to manage them. So brand new professions were born out of that need. And, the transition wasn't always smooth. There were definitely some bumps in the road. But history shows us that innovation tends to, open up new opportunities. They might not look like the jobs of the past, but they're there.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about all the people who are, super skeptical about AI? I've heard so many people say it's just a fad. Didn't people say the same thing about the internet back in the day?
Totally. And before the internet.
Yeah.
It was the telephone. People just couldn't wrap their heads around why they needed it.
Why bother talking to someone far away when you can just send a letter, right?
Exactly.
It's funny to think about that now because I can't even imagine life without the internet. But it makes you wonder, what are we failing to grasp about AI right now? What's that thing that seems small now but could, explode and change everything?
It's a great question. One area that's really interesting to watch is AI in creative fields. We're talking about things like AI-powered music composition or art generation. These tools aren't just automating creativity, they're actually augmenting it, pushing it in new directions.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's who's the artist if AI is the one actually creating the art? I mean, that gets into some pretty deep philosophical questions. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's switch gears to space.
Sounds good.
So for decades, space exploration was all about governments calling the shots.
Right.
But now, with companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin in the picture, it feels like that final frontier is becoming a lot more accessible. You know what I mean?
Exactly. This shift to private enterprise in space, it's really unlike anything we've seen before. And yeah, it has the potential to accelerate innovation like crazy, but it also brings up some big questions about who's in charge, who gets access to resources, and whether it'll lead to new kinds of inequality.
Okay, you're going to have to unpack that a little bit. What kind of new inequalities are we talking about here? And who actually gets to make the rules out in space? Is there a space UN or something?
Not quite. But think about it. If space travel does become more affordable, will it still only be an option for the wealthy? And if we have private companies setting up shop on the moon or even Mars, who gets to govern those places? These are complicated issues, and we don't really have easy answers yet.
It sounds like the Wild West, but in space. So is it all doom and gloom, or is there something to actually be excited about in this whole new era of space exploration?
I think it's a mix of both, to be honest. There's huge potential for amazing scientific discoveries, tech advancements, and even solutions to problems we face here on Earth. But we need to be really careful about how we approach it. We need to make sure the benefits are shared by everyone, not just a select few.
It sounds like a lot of responsibility rests on the shoulders of these private space companies. Do you think they're ready for that?
That remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, this is a pivotal moment in human history. The decisions we make right now will shape the future of space exploration for generations to come.
Wow. It's exciting and a little scary all at the same time.
Okay, listeners, time for you to weigh in. Imagine you're at this awesome dinner party with all of history's greatest inventors. You've got everyone from Gutenberg to Edison to Jobs, you name it.
Wow, that'd be quite the dinner party.
Right. So the question is, which invention do you think has had the biggest impact on the technology we have today? Is it the printing press, electricity, or the steam engine? Let us know. I'm curious to hear what our listeners think. Each of those innovations completely changed the game in its own way. The printing press gave us the ability to share knowledge on a massive scale, electricity powers our entire modern world, and the steam engine kicked off the whole era of mechanization. It's a tough choice.
Totally agree. All right, I've got my vote in. Now, speaking of our listeners, we got this awesome email from Clara in Austin. She compares ChatGPT to the first calculators, both tools that totally changed how we work, right? What do you think of that comparison?
I think Clara's onto something. Both calculators and AI tools like ChatGPT, they give our brains a boost, right? They help us process information and get things done faster. But AI's potential is so much bigger, so much more complex than just crunching numbers like a calculator. I mean, think about it. AI can generate text, translate languages, even compose music and create art.
So basically, calculators might have helped us with our math homework back in the day, but AI could end up writing our term papers, composing our symphonies, and even painting our portraits.
Exactly. And that brings up a whole bunch of new questions about creativity, authorship, and what it even means to be human in this age of intelligent machines.
It's mind-blowing stuff for sure. But before we get too lost in those philosophical questions, we have some listener questions we need to answer. And the first one is something I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about. They ask, is all this hype around AI just another dot-com bubble waiting to burst?
It's a good question, and I know a lot of people are asking that. And yeah, there are definitely going to be some AI startups that don't make it. That's just how it goes. But I don't think this is like the dot-com bubble. Back then, it was mostly speculation and hype. But with AI, we're already seeing real-world results. I mean, it's being used in healthcare, finance, art, you name it. It's not just a promise anymore. It's changing things right now.
So it's not just about hype, it's about actual tangible results.
That's a good point. Okay, next question. What can tech founders today learn from the inventors who came before them? What wisdom can we take from history? If there's one lesson to learn from history, it's the importance of not giving up. Remember Thomas Edison? He tried over 1,000 materials before he finally found the right one for the light bulb filament.
Right.
Innovation is rarely a straight line to success. It's more like a winding road with lots of twists and turns. It's all about experimenting, trying new things, and most importantly, learning from your mistakes.
Yeah.
The key is to just keep going, even when things get tough.
So basically, don't give up on your dreams, even when you hit those roadblocks. Edison's story is super inspiring. Even the greatest inventors face setbacks.
Exactly. Innovation is a process, not just a single event. It takes grit, resilience, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. And that's a lesson that applies to everyone, not just tech founders. It's for anyone who's trying to achieve something new and meaningful.
Love that. Persistence is key. Okay, before we move on, I want to talk about this idea of hype cycles in the tech world. Remember when everyone thought the radio was just a fad, or how skeptical people were about the internet? It seems like every new technology goes through this phase of being overhyped and then dismissed before it finally finds its place.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how history repeats itself? New technologies always face resistance and doubt at first. But as their usefulness becomes clear, they go from being novelties to necessities.
So are things like cryptocurrency and the metaverse just going through that same cycle? Will they eventually move from the fringes to the mainstream, just like the radio and the internet did?
It's tough to predict the future, but if history is any guide, any technology that truly has staying power will find its niche, even after all the hype and skepticism dies down.
All right, listeners, keep that in mind as you navigate the ever-changing world of tech. Remember, what seems like a passing fad today could become an essential part of our lives tomorrow. And with that, we'll wrap up part 1 of our deep dive into echoes of innovation. We'll be back soon with part 2, where we'll explore some of the deeper implications of these historical parallels. Stay tuned.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back to our exploration of echoes of innovation.
It's really amazing to see how these historical patterns keep, popping up, isn't it? It's like we're looking in a mirror, but it's reflecting the past instead of the present.
It is, yeah. It's like we're seeing these rhymes through time.
Exactly. And one of the most important reflections, at least for me, is the whole idea of progress versus responsibility. We touched on it earlier with the Industrial Revolution and how it impacted the environment. It's a good reminder that even the most amazing tech advancements can have unintended consequences.
Right. And that we often overlook those consequences in the rush to progress.
You know, it's so true. We get caught up in the shiny, exciting parts of new technology, but sometimes we forget to ask the tough questions like, what could go wrong? How do we minimize the risks? Are we moving too fast?
Those are such important questions, and they're not always easy to answer, are they? I mean, take AI, for example. It has the potential to, totally revolutionize healthcare, education, so many fields. But it also brings up concerns about job displacement, algorithmic bias, even the potential for misuse.
It feels like we're walking this tightrope between progress and, well, potential danger.
Hmm.
How do we even make sure AI is used for good and not for something harmful?
Well, I think it has to start with having these open and honest conversations about the ethical implications of this technology. We need to hear from lots of different perspectives from
Yeah.
people in different fields, and we need to set some clear ground rules for how it's developed and used.
So almost like an ethical framework for AI, something that can guide its development in a responsible way.
Exactly. And it can't just be a one-time thing. This framework has to keep evolving as the tech itself advances. It's an ongoing process of checking in, adapting, making adjustments.
So it's not just about building the tech, it's about building it responsibly. And that requires a whole shift in mindset, right? Not just for the people developing AI, but for everyone.
Absolutely. We all have a role to play in shaping how AI develops. We need to stay informed, stay engaged, and hold those in power accountable, because in the end, it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we as a society choose to use it.
You know, that brings up another really interesting theme from Echoes of Innovation, this idea of democratizing technology. I mean, think about radios. They used to be these luxury items, and now practically everyone has one. Or the internet, it started in research labs and universities, and now billions of people around the world have access to it.
It's incredible, isn't it? That evolution of technology. And now we're seeing it again with AI. Tools like ChatGPT are becoming more accessible every day, which means that these really powerful capabilities are ending up in the hands of everyday users.
That's exciting, but it's also a little bit, like, scary, you know? I
Mhm.
mean, what does it mean when AI becomes so widely available? Is it ultimately a force for good, or could it actually make existing inequalities even worse?
I think it has the potential to be both.
Oh.
Wider access to AI tools could empower individuals, spark creativity, and drive innovation in so many different areas. But we also have to think about potential downsides, like misuse, the spread of misinformation, and the need to teach people how to navigate this new tech landscape effectively.
So it's not just about making AI accessible, it's about making sure that access is responsible and equitable.
Exactly. And that's going to require a collaboration and innovation, not just from technologists, but from educators, policymakers, and really everyone. We have to work together to make sure the benefits of AI reach everyone, not just a privileged few.
It's like we're all pioneers in this new digital frontier, and we have to figure out how to chart a course that leads to a future where technology empowers us, connects us, and helps us solve some of the biggest challenges we face.
I love that analogy. And as we navigate this uncharted territory, it's really important to remember that we're not starting from scratch. We can learn from history, from the successes and failures of previous technological revolutions. We can use those insights to build a more sustainable, equitable, and empowering future.
I love that perspective. It's like we have this whole library of historical wisdom at our fingertips. By studying the past, we can better understand where we are now and make more informed decisions about where we're headed.
Exactly. The echoes of innovation are all around us. We just have to pay attention and be willing to learn from the wisdom of those who came before us.
And speaking of listening, let's tune into another listener question. This one is about the speed of technological change. They ask, it feels like things are changing faster than ever before. Is this even sustainable? Are we rushing into a future that we're just not prepared for?
I get that. It's a valid concern. And they're right. The pace of technological change has definitely sped up in recent decades, thanks to things like advancements in computing power, connectivity, and all the data we have available now. And yeah, while this rapid progress has led to some pretty incredible innovations, it's also created a whole new set of anxieties.
I think one of the biggest anxieties is this fear of becoming obsolete. Like, are our skills and knowledge going to be outdated next week? Are robots going to take our jobs? It's like this constant pressure to keep up.
It's a very real fear. And I think it highlights how important it is to keep learning throughout our lives and be adaptable. In a world where tech is constantly evolving, the most valuable skills aren't always technical. It's more about being able to learn new things, unlearn old things, and relearn things. It's about being curious, adaptable, and open to new ways of thinking and working.
So it's not just about mastering the latest technology. It's about mastering the art of learning itself.
You got it. And that message resonates through history. Innovation has always disrupted things, created new challenges, and required new skills. But it's also always moved us forward, broadened our horizons, and opened up incredible new possibilities.
It's easy to get swept up in all the hype and anxiety surrounding new technology, but we have to remember that technology is ultimately a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's our responsibility to decide how we use it, what values we build into it, and what kind of future we want to create with it.
That's a really important point. And as we continue our exploration of echoes of innovation, let's keep that in mind. Let's learn from history, embrace the present, and work towards a future that's intentional, responsible, and deeply human.
I love that. All right, listeners, that's it for part 2 of our deep dive. We'll be back soon with part 3, where we'll wrap things up and leave you with some food for thought. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into echoes of innovation.
It's been like a whirlwind tour through the history of tech.
It has. We've covered so much ground. I know, right? And as we wrap things up, I keep thinking about how amazingly creative humans are. I mean, we've tackled so many challenges, pushed the limits of what we thought was possible, created a world our ancestors probably wouldn't even recognize.
It really is remarkable when you think about it. But as we've been talking about, every step forward in tech comes with new questions, new dilemmas, new things we need to take responsibility for. We can't just focus on the cool, shiny aspects of technology. We have to think about how it impacts society, our ethics, even what it means to be human.
That's a good point. It's like this constant balancing act between the excitement of progress and the responsibility that comes with it. And it feels like that balance is only going to get trickier as we move further into the 21st century.
I agree. The choices we make now, the tech we develop, the values we embed in it, all of that's going to have a huge impact on the world for generations to come. We have to be thoughtful, have open discussions, and make sure tech serves humanity, not the other way around.
So what can we, as individuals, do to make sure tech is used for good? It feels like such a huge question. Where do we even start?
I think awareness is key. We need to understand the technologies being developed, what they can do, what the risks are, and the ethical questions they raise. We have to ask tough questions, challenge assumptions, and demand transparency from those who are making decisions.
So basically, we need to be informed and engaged citizens, not just blindly accepting whatever new tech comes along. We have a voice, and we need to use it to shape the kind of future we want.
That's it, exactly. And beyond what we do as individuals, we need to build a culture where everyone feels responsible for how tech is used. It's not just on the tech developers. It's on policymakers, educators, artists, everyone. We need to work together to make sure tech is used ethically and make society better.
It really is a team effort. We need to have these open conversations, listen to different points of view, and find common ground to navigate this new landscape.
Absolutely. And it's not just about avoiding the bad stuff. It's about using the amazing potential of tech to actually solve some of the world's biggest problems. Think about climate change, poverty, disease. Those are things tech can help us address if we use it the right way.
It's like we have this powerful toolkit, and it's up to us to decide what we build with it, right? Do we create a more equitable, sustainable, just world? Or do we just make existing problems even worse?
Those are the stakes. And the decisions we make right now will have consequences for a long, long time.
It's a lot to consider. Sometimes it feels overwhelming, but it's also super exciting. We live in a time with so much potential for technological advancement, and we have the power to shape how that plays out.
I completely agree. It's a time of both huge challenges and incredible opportunities. And I really believe that human creativity, compassion, and that drive to create a better world, those things will guide us.
As we wrap up, I can't stop thinking about that Alan Kay quote. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. It's like we're not just along for the ride when it comes to tech, we're actively shaping it.
We are. We have the power to imagine, to create, to literally invent the future. And I think if we approach it with wisdom, with humility, and a sense of responsibility, we can build a future that works for everyone.
That's a great note to end on. So listeners, we'll leave you with this. If you could invent the future, what problem would you solve using technology? What kind of world would you create? Think about it. And remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we build together. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into echoes of innovation. We hope it's made you curious, sparked your imagination, and left you feeling a little more optimistic about what's to come. Keep those minds buzzing, and we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.